World Traveler is taking you to Japan. Today's program, we're starting out on the bullet train. We're heading down to Kyoto, passing beautiful Mount Fuji, the very symbol of the country itself. It takes a few hours to travel by the high-speed train from Tokyo to Kyoto. And along the way, you have some nice scenery, especially the grand vista of Fuji, and especially when you're lucky to hit it on a pretty clear day. We were traveling during the early part of December, which is kind of chilly, but as you can see, we had some very good weather. Temperature was generally in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, so there was a decent range. It was never bitter cold. And obviously on the train, it's very comfortable. This is part of the high level of technology and wonderful customer service that you get when you travel in Japan. The rolling snack cart comes right by your seat. Looking out the window at the scenery, we passed an area where there was some snow on the ground. This is a slightly higher elevation, midway between Tokyo and Kyoto, so here it gets colder. See, the mountains themselves have snow coverings, but we found that in Tokyo and Kyoto itself there was no snow. Wasn't quite that cold, but lovely to see it out the train window from the comfort and warmth of our nice bullet train, protected by the window, and just enjoying the scenery as we glide on by. You can do a little reading on your way down there, perhaps study up on Kyoto, read the newspaper, take a nap, but you don't want to miss out on the scenery, so keep your eyes open. And soon you'll be arriving in Kyoto. That's the modern city of Kyoto. We'll be showing you a little bit of the modern side of Kyoto, but mostly we have come to this former imperial capital of Japan to see the old temples and the beautiful gardens. Arriving in Kyoto Station, it's a modern masterpiece. It's 9 stories high, terrific. And then we went right on to a bus tour.
We are visiting Sanju-Sangen-Do Hall. This is a Buddhist temple with 1,000 images of Buddha inside. For the last, we are visiting Kiyomizu Temple, the most popular Buddhist temple in Kyoto, located up on the mountain. You have a nice view of the city from the temple, and near the temple you find a very busy shopping street with many souvenir shops and pottery shops. After visiting these 3 places, we take you back to your hotels and the station. But Kyoto is not the center of business or industry like Tokyo or Osaka. This is a center of Japanese culture, because Kyoto was once the capital of Japan for over 1,000 years, from 794 to 1868. So we have so many historical buildings in the city. Like there's one big temple on the left side now. This is one of the biggest Buddhist temples in Kyoto, named Nishi Hongan-Ji Temple, the headquarters of Shijo-Dori sect in Japanese Buddhism. For Japanese, we have 2 major religions, Buddhism and Shintoism. A building for Buddhism we call a Buddhist temple. From now on is a good time to see real old Japan. Because it's winter, not many tourists visiting Japan this time of year, but it's the time when you see real Japan, old Japan. So people are very busy finishing their job of this year and preparing for Christmas decoration, preparing for New Year holiday, lots of party and visiting the temple and shrines.
The bus tour takes a couple of hours and visits 3 of the major temples and shows you some of the different side streets as you're driving through town, arriving at Heian Temple. This is actually one of the newer temples in Kyoto, built at the end of the 19th century, and of course built in a very traditional style. This kind of architecture really dates back 300, 400, even 500 years. And it's a very large temple complex with some beautiful gardens out in the back. The temples have wonderful wooden architecture and the gardens around them, which probably is even more of an interesting attraction than the buildings themselves. There's always well-tended paths through the gardens. Often you have a pond or several ponds like this with pretty reflections of the vegetation. You notice all of the colors in the trees. We were quite fortunate to be catching the tail end of the fall season. Even though it's the first week of December, the weather was fairly moderate, and generally the colors do linger into the early part of December. And around the garden you have various kinds of wooden structures and bridges and pavilions. Here's a gardener out in a boat reaching some of the areas that are on islands in the middle of the pond. Usually at each temple there's a large map showing you the lay of the land, and completing our visit to Heian, decided to walk from here into downtown. It's about a 1.5 or 2 miles walk. It only takes 30-45 minutes to get there, passing a beautiful art museum which has some European paintings as well as Japanese art inside. Arriving at the Gion district. This is Yasaka Temple. We'll be coming back there again in the evening and show you more of Yasaka. Shijo-Dori is one of the main streets in this part of town, and the little side streets are where you want to venture to see the really charming part of old Kyoto. Here you've got the old tea houses, and there are some geisha walking about in the Gion district, which is very famous for its geisha, and the maiko, which are geisha apprentices, such as this lady. She's a maiko because she's painted with white face still yet. The geisha don't have white painting on their face or on their necks. There's a lovely network of quiet little side streets in the Gion district with traditional wooden architecture, and then there's the busy street of Shijo-Dori that runs through the heart of Gion, and it leads on into downtown. We'll take you there in a few minutes. But just north and south of Shijo-Dori, you find these lovely quiet streets. This is Hanami-Koji, which is the main side street in Gion where you're most likely to run into some geisha, particularly at twilight or just after dark. This is a waitress in the restaurant. She's not a geisha. And these restaurants are very exclusive. The tea houses in the neighborhood often only allow in their regular customers or invited guests. Here's a stork standing in a little canal. At this point, we're just north of the busy street in a neighborhood called Shinbashi, and then we get back down to the busy street. So when you're in Gion, you definitely want to go take a wander in those little side streets, both north and south of Shijo-Dori. And here you'll find some busy restaurants and a lot of fun activities going on here. Bright lights. We're back in the main part of Gion now, and this is a kabuki neighborhood as well. There's a big theater that's famous for its kabuki presentations. As we get a little bit to the edge of Gion now, we're heading over into more to the west side of this district. The light at twilight is really spectacular, as you can see, so it's always a great idea to postpone your dinner until it actually gets dark and take advantage of the twilight. It's a lovely hour in which you can be walking around and enjoying the combination of the fluorescent lights that have come on, the shop lights, and the background illumination up in the skies, and do a little shopping perhaps. Pick up some chopsticks or the lacquerware that Japan is so famous for. You'll find it on nearly every block throughout the city as you're out strolling about. And then we continue another couple of blocks west on Shijo-Dori, crossing the Kamo River to the busy intersection with Kawaramachi-Dori, which is the real crossroads, the commercial center of downtown modern Kyoto. There's several big department stores here. There's a real hustle and bustle and ebb and flow of lots of young people out shopping in the evening. And they particularly like these pedestrian malls. There are two pedestrian malls. They had been streets, but long ago were converted to places for just people to stroll. And they have a nice covered roof there, but it's still open air. These two parallel shopping arcades are called Shin-Kyogoku and Teramachi. And nearby we found this excellent vegetarian restaurant. The name of this place is Tosai, and we had very friendly and helpful service from the owner, chef. You see here the artistic presentation of the foods. It was a little bit of a challenge to find it, but we got there. It's just off of that busy street a few blocks, and then we walked and walked and walked in the evening all the way down towards the station. Kyoto Station is really quite a train station. It's 9 stories high. There's a skywalk up above. You can, during the day, get a nice view looking out over the city. And there's a little shopping mall inside the station.